Hi, everybody. So last time I did one of these, last week, I had on a short sleeve, little thin shirt, and I was bragging about how spring had arrived and I was wearing short sleeves. Now look at me today. I'm in this like thick winter sweater. It's freezing outside. It's raining. And you know that like wet, humid cold? Yeah, it's in my bones and I'm super annoyed about it. But c'est la vie when you live in Montreal. This is what we deal with. I'm Stephanie Erickson, clinical social worker, and I also wrote this book, Plan for Aging Well, which you can find on Amazon should you wish to read it. Today, we're going to be talking to a caregiver. Most of the time when I have people on, I'm talking to professionals who are working in the field. But today, I'm going to speak with a caregiver. V and I met. I'm going to say V because her name, she's French. Okay, so she's Virginie. Nod your head. Yes, okay. But I can't say it. I'm horrible at saying it. So I'm going to call her V, which she's already approved. When V and I met, we were on Global News Network. They were doing a piece about caregiving and how that can inspire you to find your purpose and take all of your knowledge and pour it into the workplace. And this is how V and I met. And I just found her story incredibly inspiring. She's an amazing woman. She's doing incredible things at her work, and so much of it was based on her experiences as a caregiver. Now, V was a caregiver in the past for her brother and is currently supporting her mother. So we've got lots to talk about here today. And so V, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I feel very privileged.
Well, thank you. Okay, I don't know what to say to that.
It's difficult to look humble, right? It's like, okay, thank you.
Well, I'm not that great at accepting compliments. Like just if someone said, "Oh, your outfit looks cute," then I mean, you're like, "Oh yes, I got it at whatever. I got it at H&M." Like I can't just say, "Oh, thank you." I always have to like. I feel very uncomfortable when anybody says something positive. Are you the same way?
Yes, I am. That's why you were saying stuff about me, and I was like, oh my god, like I don't know how to take this. So yeah, it is an honor to be here, and you should take the compliment.
Oh, someone just wrote that they're watching from Cajun country in Louisiana. Merci
Wow.
beaucoup, mes amis. Well, thank you, Warren. Glad you're watching from Louisiana. So make me up some Cajun food if you can while you're there and send it over quickly. Okay, so V, first talk to me a bit about your brother and the type of illness that he had and your support of him.
Mm-hmm. Um, so it's not recent. So what you were
Yeah.
saying, it happened a couple years ago, like close to 11 years ago. So Simon, let's name him Simon. He is 8 years older than me. So when it happened, he was in his late 30s. Through a regular blood work, some irregularities came up. And it took them a few years to figure out, well, I'm saying years, might be like multiple months, but like close to a year to figure out what was wrong with him. So the type of cancer he had, I'm not going to go into like too much details, but typically it's the kind of cancer that someone much older in their 60s would have. Like it's a disease of the elderly. So it was a lymphoma, non-Hodgkin. Normally it's the type B because there's two types. There's B and T, and my brother had the type T. So there, it was supposed to be an elderly cancer. It was not the one that was the most seen or common. And it was cataloged and tagged as indolent and dormant and slow growing. Okay. And when they gave him the diagnosis, they kind of said you can go on 20 years before even having symptoms or starting feeling something is wrong. So it's kind of bittersweet. You're got okay, we're relieved, but we know we've got that black cloud kind of like.
Totally. It's like, it's like I know like when my sister, she had breast cancer, and when she was first diagnosed, it was stage 0. And so they were like, look, we can just do some radiation and you're going to be fine. And my sister's like, nope, double mastectomy, that will just weigh on my head for the rest of my life. And so I can appreciate that. Like, you're given this news and you're like, oh, okay, well, let me just sit and relax for the next 20 years and not worry.
That's pretty much what happened. My brother is a very like go with the flow type of person. They already had one child. They went for another one, knowing that they would have peace of mind for many, many years. And, life has its own ways. And it took like a year and a half before things started escalating. He started having symptoms of the B type, not of the T type. So his spleen started to enlarge, which is a symptom that happens. Normally the spleen is the size of your fist or a pear, and then his was the size of a premature newborn. They had to take it out to help him because it was taking a lot of space in his body. And so he had to go undergo surgery. I guess this is where my role started. It was not necessarily the cancer kicking in. It was more of the symptoms starting to show. And when you go through a surgery like he did, it's a long process because they wanted to get, the spleen in one piece. And then to do that, you need to open up, fairly big. So the recovery period is long and difficult.
Let me just interject there, V. I want to hear the rest of the story, but I want to say two things. One, you're in your early 20s. So really you should be going out to clubs and dancing and getting drunk and going on dates. And all of a sudden that wasn't happening. So that's just on an aside, as I appreciate that it was a sacrifice for you at that time in your life. The second thing that I love that you're bringing up is that, a diagnosis of cancer, it's not always the cancer that the caregivers have to respond to. It's all of the other things that go around that, surgeries and pain and, mobility issues if you're having pain in your abdomen and you can't do this or that. So, there's a lot of layers when we're given a diagnosis. It's not just the illness in and of itself. So I can really appreciate what it is you're saying.
Well, thank you. And at the time, I preferred to spend my time with my brother than, doing all those fun stuff that you were referring to. So I guess that's when it kicked in, when he, went to the hospital. He was there for a while. So right there, I think my first role is gatekeeper, because he was not in isolation. People wanted to come and see him at the hospital. So early on, with my boss at the time, we made a deal that when things would go, sideways, I would work from 6 a.m. until 1 p.m. And then from 1 p.m. to 7, I would be with my brother, and then I would work later at night. So I was able to spend my afternoons with him. So I would spend time at the hospital, and when it was bad days, I would get in touch with his wife and say, okay, today's a bad day. Whoever was supposed to come today, let's cancel them. So we were kind of like managing his, schedule, making sure he was safe. And because it's really uncomfortable to go through that surgery when your organs are kind of like coming back into where they were originally. So he had a lot of discomfort. So gatekeeper, definitely.
You're like his personal assistant, managing his schedule basically. And just again, like on a side note, I don't want to miss that point, and we'll get back to it, is that was incredible flexibility for your workplace. And I know that's not where you work now, but that's something really important. And so any, employers that are out there, organizations listening to this, these are things that are possible to do where your employee, you can make accommodations and your employee can still meet the demands of the work and produce whatever needs to be produced. You don't lose your employee. You don't have to find someone new. They don't go on disability, and you're able to do what you need to do. So that's beautiful that happened.
Yeah.
And also hi to Lachin, who's just said hello. Hello to you too. So I'm seeing, you don't see it, but I'm seeing people make comments. So
I would be distracted. So that's a good thing.
I am distracted. So, anyways, you were saying you were the gatekeeper and things like that. And I guess you were also maybe helping your brother at home or his wife and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, because they already had a pretty good, routine at home. So Justine, because she was working on the island, we're on the South Shore, she would, commute in the morning early. So she would be the one dropping the kids at daycare, and my brother typically would be the one picking them up, making the dinner and stuff like that. So I took his place. So when he was at the hospital, I was the one going and getting the kids at daycare, at, whatever time that needed to be picked up. I would, prep dinner. So when their mom, my sister-in-law would be home, then dinner would be ready the same way if my brother would have been there.
Wow.
And then I would, they were little, so there was no homework and stuff like that. It was not that, a lot of organization, but so I would get back home and I would continue working when I would get back home. So
what did that do, the dynamics between like you and your sister-in-law? I mean, that must have been really difficult because you were stepping in and, without the right relationship with family, that could be seen as a real intrusion and, you're taking the place, you're stepping in as mom to my kids and that kind of thing. Was it a hard transition for you to step into that role, or was it a welcome thing?
it was a welcome thing. We have it takes a village approach at home. We had, because at the time we had a family cottage where we spent all of our weekends as a family with my sister-in-laws, my brothers, our nephews, so we, everyone took part in the education of the kids. So if I was with the kids and I don't know, I had to discipline, because often that's what we're referred to when there's friction. So if I had to discipline, then the parents would say, well, it's on TV, she's in charge, so she takes it. So we already had that approach. But to go back to my sister-in-law, it's like you get to know someone on the different level, deepen, our relationship got stronger, because at the time she was my brother's wife, the mother of my nephews, but now she was my partner. We were together and we had we were such a tight unit, the three of us, my brother, his wife, and I. And her and I would communicate often. Okay, today's a good day, or today's not a good day. Let's do this weekend. So together we planned with my brother, because he was there. He was just not physically home either when it was for the surgery or for the transplant. But yeah, so I got to know her on a different level, appreciate that the strong woman she is, and because she was working hard. I mean, she would leave early in the morning, come back because the traffic, Montreal traffic was insane. So I got to know her and the way she handled everything. They're both very, down to earth, and let's not make this a drama. Let's approach this like I got to see that side of her and also my brother. So it was great.
It's so beautiful because we talk a lot about, and next week, actually, the interview I'll be doing is with Lisa Gibbons, and we're going to be talking about the beautiful things that can happen when you're a caregiver, because we often focus on some of those negative aspects and the challenging aspects, but you're bringing up another really great point, is that it can do incredible things for relationship, deepen relationships, gain new respect for another person's experience, gain a different perspective on life and the way you handle things. So there are some really positive things about caregiving that I think maybe we all need to emphasize, a bit more, so that people don't only see caregiving as, and I hate using the word burden, that's a lot of times the word associated with caregiving. I don't like that connection. I'm only using it now to make a point that that's not always the association, right? Sometimes it's really beautiful.
Yeah, no, definitely. It's to me, I call me the silver lining, but it was such a great experience. To be a caregiver, it deepens the relationship with the people around you. Definitely.
And what was it like for you? So your brother's older than you. So what was it like, that relationship, like his kid's sister, who he probably used to boss around at some point in your life, is now stepping in and being the gatekeeper, and he's having to rely on you like a big sister. I'll just kind of loosely use that term. What was that shift like for your relationship with him?
Well, Simon and I, and also my other brother Jan and I, we have very close relationship. I shared during the other interview we did together that my dad passed away when I was a teenager. I was 16 years old. My brothers I have 8 and 9 years difference with my brothers. They were already out the door. They were not living with us. They were adults, living their lives. And all of a sudden it was me and my mom, and my brother stepped in, making sure, everything was fine with me. I was spending a lot of time with them as well. When I was in my early 20s, I moved to Toronto. My brothers made sure I was, everything was fine in my apartment. They would come and visit me. So they kind of looked after me. But at the same time, I think they saw the person that I was becoming. So yes, I'm their baby sister, but they knew I was able to take care of stuff. They saw me after the death of our father, how I handled everything. So when Simon, when I told him, because what kind of like shifted everything is like Simon would drive to his chemo treatment. He would still go and pick up the kids at daycare. And to me, it was like, I can't believe he's doing this. He's putting himself at risk with all the germs at daycare and the fact that he's driving. So I kind of put my foot down. It's like, hey, listen, like here's what I can offer to you. And he looked at me, he's like, all right, okay, that makes sense. You know, I was giving him all kinds of arguments. You won't have to pay for parking. The kids must stay in daycare long enough. I can drop you home. You can do what you want, like mow your lawn, whatever, while I go and pick up the kids. So for him, it was more of like, you know, she's part of the family because I was already part of the family, and now she's just chipping in more, you know. But he was like, he recognized I don't like to say sacrifice because it was not a sacrifice. I did not sacrifice things. I just made decisions, and I think he recognized the fact that I was in my, you know, late 20s, early 30s, and I was doing this for him. They were really, you know, appreciative of what I was doing. But our relationship was very strong, and it became even stronger afterwards.
Yeah, that's wonderful. And I like that you pulled yourself back from using the word sacrifice. And I used it in the beginning when I said, oh, you should have been going out to clubs, you know, dancing and getting drunk, and you were sacrificing. And I should have been careful about that, because the words that we associate with caregiving and relationships have meaning, right? Our words are very powerful. We all know that. You know, someone can punch us in the face and it may not hurt as someone who lashes out at us verbally. And so I'm glad that you said that, and that for many people, sacrifice is not the right word for what they're doing at all. It's just part of who we are as a family. It's part of who I am as a person. And again, that's kind of like the beautiful piece of caregiving. We were going to talk a lot about your work, so I want to move on to that. I know you have more to tell me about Simon. And by the way, he's fine and well, everybody.
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
Yeah, it's been many, many years, and he's doing fine. So let's just say that, so people aren't wondering what happened at the end of that story. He's fine. Let's talk about the impact on your work. You were mentioning that the company that you used to work for, you know, was very flexible in their time, which is great. What prompted you, though, to change? Because you were learning so much about yourself and cancer and resources and navigation and advocacy and science, all of these things as a caregiver. What was there, like an impetus where you said, that's it, I'm making a career change? Was it just something that was slowly entering your brain? Like, what happened?
It's funny because I was reflecting about that. It's like I don't think I did a career change. I changed industry because I've been doing the same work for like over a decade now. So I'm a training and development specialist. So I build training programs. I did it for the company that I was working at when my brother was sick. It was in technology. And then after, I was more towards like soft skills, like leadership skills and development. So building training programs. I guess for me, it's an 8-year journey, because by the moment like Simon, you know, things started escalating with the bone marrow transplant and everything, my hands were deep in hematology, and I was fascinated by it. And as a kid, I always wanted to be a doctor. But when your dad passed away, when you're in the last year of your high school and you don't go back to school for a little while, like it kind of changed your path of becoming a doctor. So for me, it's as if like I put an X on this, which is fine, because today I'm on a different path and I'm as happy. So what happened is, to me, it's COVID, literally. Because I'm a very planful, analytical kind of person. I like to plan like ahead of time. So for me to make that move without COVID, like it would have taken me probably another 5 years. And this is something that changed with my, you know, being a caregiver. You kind of like shift your mindset from planning and carefully everything. When things are not going as planned, and you have to hit the ground running. So that's what happened. So to me, when COVID hit, I started to feel useless, powerless. And I started to wonder how I can make that in my career. So I, you know, started looking into where can I go next. I was in an industry that was hit by COVID, unfortunately. And I started looking, and I was really picky, because training and development is it's not like the kind of role that you see every day, specifically with what I do. And when I saw the job description, I remember checking each boxes. I was like, okay, got this, like and then when it went to like knowledge of hematology, it was a big fat X. I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe this. Like, this is, everything's kind of happening. It took me 8 years to get here. And shortly after my brother got better, when he was cured, I went back to university and I did a degree in adult education in andragogy. So it was more like every little stone were like leading me to where I am today, which is, I'm so grateful. Yeah.
It's I love the way that you're describing this. And by the way, hello, Nicole, who said the same thing is happening with her. So I don't know if she was talking about, changing careers or finding something new. Wasn't specific there, but something that you're saying is connecting with her, which is great. I think for all of us, throughout our life, we have so many different experiences, and a lot of us tend to compartmentalize and say, oh, well, this experience belongs in this lane and this one is here, and no, I can't do this. But for you, it's like this whole culmination of experiences throughout your life, and then COVID hits. And for a lot of us, it's okay, now this is a time to reflect. I realized that maybe my life wasn't how I wanted it to be. I'm starting to realize what's most important to me, what's going to motivate me, what's going to fulfill me. And it's great that you use that moment to reflect and make a change, because a lot of people, unfortunately, I think when COVID hit, it did the opposite. They were reflecting, but then sank into like a place of despair and depression and had a hard time making a change. But for you, it was like, okay, here's a pause. This is a universe saying to me, now's the time. Let's see what we can do. And for your new, I realize it's the same thing, training and development. Now you're with Bristol Myers Squibb, correct? Okay,
yeah,
so
correct.
and you're doing hematology is one of the things I guess that you're doing. So what in your skills as a caregiver, and I'm going to call them skills because caregiving is not just supporting someone haphazardly. We are gaining some pretty incredible skills as we're doing it. What are those skills that you see that you've been able to just plant straight into your current work?
Well, first, when you're in the field that I'm in, you need compassion. Definitely, you need patience. You need compassion, which is something that I've worked on and developed. For some people, it might be very natural. For me, I had to work on it because there's like being compassionate with someone who went through the same thing that you did, so you can relate. But what about like the other ones who are going through something you never experienced? So for me, it's that side that I've developed and started to focus. I was like, okay, different things happen to different people, and I needed to focus on that. So that's one thing. Not a patient person by nature. I like when things are fast and execute very well according to plan. So like I was saying earlier, it got me outside of my analytical planning. Let's stick to what we plan and follow suit. So now I think I'm more resilient when things like that happen. So when COVID hit, it's funny because someone said, I would have expected you to like be in a panic mode about, oh my God, what's happening, And then to the contrary, I was very like, all right, let's hit the ground running. Now's not the time to plan. Now's not the time to start focusing. Let's just execute. So I think as a caregiver, that's something that it was teaching me. And again, like it goes back to the resilience, being able to see when you're at work, not everything goes well. And sometimes you fail on your face and other times, superstar, everything's fine. But those moments when you fail on your face, if you have that muscle, which is resilience, you're able to say, okay, let's bounce back. Let's identify what were the key learnings here and how can we move forward. So for me, it's like a lot is inspired to me from, how it changed me for the better, I'd like to think.
Yeah, well, I'll ask your boss. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
It's really better. I'm sure it has, and I think it's even beyond resilience, V. It's also a flexibility, right? That we have to have when we're caregivers, because as you said, and this is really life in general, nothing really goes as according to plan. And in fact, it's surprising when it does. It's like, oh, that worked out. How come I didn't have any barriers? Why were there no hiccups in that process? And I'm very much like you. And that's because of the anxiety that I live with. I like things to be in control. I like them to be scheduled. I want to know what the plan is. I can become easily overwhelmed if things are thrown at me that I hadn't expected. And so, as we are aware of these challenges that we have in our own personality and open ourselves up to new experiences like caregiving and new experiences like advocating for a loved one or being the gatekeeper, having to set limits, have to set boundaries, although that part you were probably really good at if you liked control. Right. Um, but
Yeah.
I think, that whole experience of caregiving gives you this, ability to really be flexible and know that things are not going to be as you want. They're going to change all the time, and we have to be able to adapt in the moment. And that adaptation is what creates resilience, right? So we have to be flexible, we adapt, and then we succeed and we say, okay, now we're resilient. It's almost like that's to me the path that it goes in. I don't know if you would agree with that.
I do agree with that. I think it's a nice description of how we can build that resilience. It doesn't come on its own. Like there's the process. Definitely. I do agree.
So now that you're in this field where you're, working for BMS, a company that is devoted to the development of medication that saves people's lives, what has this done for you in terms of like your feeling of fulfillment and purpose every day? Do you feel more invigorated and more motivated?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I'm by nature, I'm a very motivated person, but I think it reached a different level. Never been more happy to wake up in the morning and to start working. My peers at BMS are incredible. I mean, I've never, honestly, like, I'm not just saying that because I've never seen this. I've never seen so many people caring, compassionate, focused on the patients, because that's what we do every single day. Thousands of people around the world are waking up at Bristol Myers Squibb to ultimately, make sure patients and their families have a better outcome, and that's what we do. It's rewarding. Ultimately, it's rewarding. It's. I'm not a doctor. I'm not saving lives per se, but I'm helping our colleagues that are in the field, interacting with our physicians and specialists, making sure that our medicines are known and they understand it, how it can help and support our patients. So it's amazing. It really is amazing.
Yeah, I want to give a comment to Nicole. I said I wasn't sure when she said the same thing is happening, but she's written more, so I want to read it to you.
Go
She said,
ahead.
"Hi, ladies. Thank you for this talk." And she put a heart. "I've
Oh,
been a caregiver for my children, and it's been so fulfilling managing and advocating for them. I've learned so much now I have decided to further my education and hopefully have an opportunity to make a great impact on the autism community." Lovely, Nicole. And this is so beautiful. And I think we can all look to our personal life and see whatever our struggles have been or the situations we've been in and use those skills and just plop them right into whatever it is that we want to do. And I hope that the business community is more open to realizing that, for example, Nicole, who's spent years taking care of her children, who clearly what it seems like to me is they're on the spectrum, is that there's so much value in that experience that maybe she does have to go back to school and do those kinds of things, but there's so much value in what she did now. And I do feel like the business world is starting to look at these other kinds of experiences that people have and be able to say, yeah, as a mother, she knows how to multitask. She can do this, she can do that, she can do that. So maybe she hasn't been in the working world for whatever so many years, but man, this woman is going to be able to get it done, huh?
yeah. Like I like to think that if you want something done, just give it to someone who's the busiest, usually, or the one
That's
that are
so
extra.
true. Give it to a working mother.
Yeah, that's it.
My husband always says to me, he calls me a machine. He goes, "You're a machine." I mean, we have two kids.
Yeah.
I run my own business. I do all of these things. He's like, "You are a machine." I'm like, "That's right.
Yeah,
Working
you are.
mom."
Yeah.
We know how to get it done. And Nicole with 5 kids, I'm sure she knows how to get it
Yeah.
done too. Um, Thanks so much, V. Do you have any last words that you would like to share about either your own experience or what you would encourage other people to look at in their own lives if they want to make that leap, leave a career that's fulfilling and they're enjoying, but really make a leap into something that gives them maybe more of a purpose. Do you have any last words?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, like those experiences are extremely formative, meaning that like you get to learn about yourself even more. And sometimes maybe they were rough patches, but those are the moments where you were at your best. You were learning about a field that you're passionate about, even though you didn't work in that field, or you got to learn new skills. And I think right now is the best time for anyone out there to take a pause, because the world is on pause, let's face it. Like, take a pause, reflect. What makes you happy? What do you think will fulfill you from all levels, personal, career wise, your friends, your family, your loved ones? Like, and if it's within your reach, make that move. So for me, that was my leap. That's the leap I took. I like to think that the death of my father stopped me from going to med school, but my brother's cancer led me to a much more fulfilling career. So, things that are negative or bad can ultimately become that ray of light at the end of, a rough patch that you can hang on to. So, yeah.
1,000%. And Nicole is saying, yes, so true. And she's thanking you. I totally agree with you, V. I find that the most growth that I've ever had in my life has been from the worst absolute moments in my life as well. When I feel the weakest, when I feel the most fear, when I feel the most incapable, that's when all of the opportunities have come my way. The most growth has occurred, and then has, sent me to achieve more than I had ever anticipated. So I agree. We need to kind of sit in that junk and that uncomfortable space sometimes and say, what is the meaning behind what's been thrown at me, whether it's caregiving or whatever else? Where is the opportunity in this? What am I learning about myself? What am I learning about the world, life, how things work, and how can I use all of that to do something for myself that fills me up with, purpose and hope.
Yeah. Thank you for finishing your sentence with that word. Hope I think, is what's holding everything up.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Well, thank you so much, V. I'm super happy to have you on. Thank you to those who have been commenting and participating. I really appreciate it. Next week, I'm going to have on Lisa Gibbons, as I mentioned, next Thursday, I think at 3 p.m. Eastern, if I'm remembering correctly. And we're going to talk about the joys of caregiving. Again, we're going to go on a positive note. I think I got to start moving down this lane a bit more. It's hard, though, not to talk about the challenges, huh? Because this is also when people are struggling and they need guidance and stuff, too. Anyways, that's my thing that I'll have to manage. So thank you so much, V. Hang on, V. And Nicole is giving us clappings and hearts. Hang on there, V. We'll talk for just a second, but I'm going to end the broadcast. Okay. And thanks, everybody. Take care. Stay safe out there. Wear your mask.
Bye.